Okay, let's dive right into this explainer and decode something really fascinating. Exactly why the smartest person in the room so often loses out to the loudest. It's a dynamic we see absolutely everywhere, from corporate boardrooms to academic panels, and today we're going to explore the exact neuroscience you can use to fundamentally flip that script. We're going to look closely at the architecture of presence, literally breaking down the biological and psychological mechanics of winning what we can call the confidence game. So if you've ever felt overlooked despite being undeniably the most qualified person sitting at the table, this breakdown is entirely for you.
So, Section 1, the competence trap. Let's start by looking at a deeply frustrating scenario that, well, you might be all too familiar with.
Here is the exact situation we need to unpack. Why does the loudest person win? Picture the scene for a second. You know the material cold. You've done the work twice over. You were up late thinking through every possible angle, every objection, every little nuance, right? Meanwhile, everyone else was still trying to figure out the basic premise. Yet someone significantly less prepared walks into that meeting, casually takes charge of the whole conversation, and ends up getting the credit or the promotion or the contract simply because they act like they already own the space. And honestly, the worst part isn't even losing out. The worst part is that you're sitting there seeing exactly what's happening in real time, and it just feels maddeningly unfair.
For a long time, you've probably been telling yourself that this is just a flaw in the system. Maybe you believe the world is just shallow, and that if you just keep your head down and wait long enough, your hard work is going to organically be discovered. But guys, that is a trap. It is simply not a strategy. The brutal truth is that the world doesn't undervalue competence. It simply moves way too fast and honestly doesn't have the time to accurately measure your hard work up front. Every single person in that room has already made a foundational decision about you before you've even had the chance to present your meticulously researched data.
Section 2. The brain as gatekeeper. To understand why this happens, we have to look at the human brain not as a logical judge of your resume, but as a lightning-fast, highly automatic filter.
The real problem here is that you've been competing on entirely the wrong track. You've been over-investing in the content of your argument. The raw data, the carefully chosen words, the brilliant insights. But you've been entirely neglecting the container. Your posture, your physical stillness, and how your voice actually lands in the room. And as it turns out, the container is doing the vast majority of the heavy lifting, the very moment you walk through the door.
Now, this isn't cynicism, this is pure neuroscience. Harvard researcher Amy Cuddy found that in mere milliseconds, these ancient evolutionary systems in our brains are running a rapid invisible filter to detect dominance and safety. Milliseconds. Think about how insanely fast that is. The brain aggressively uses your physical signals as an evolutionary shortcut, a proxy for competence, before a single word of your presentation is even consciously processed. So if your shoulders are pulled in tight or your voice rises at the end of a sentence like you're subtly asking for permission to speak, the gatekeepers in the minds of your audience immediately registers a story of lack. The room literally listens to your body long before it ever listens to your words.
Section 3. The science of presence. So the absolute crucial point is figuring out exactly how to hack this millisecond filter so your container perfectly matches your brilliant content.
Cuddy defines presence not as some mystical, unteachable aura that only extroverts are lucky enough to be born with. No, it's a perfect biological alignment. It is a strict coherence between what you feel internally and what your body expresses externally. When those two things match seamlessly, your container broadcasts undeniable competence. The core problem is that when we're nervous or, when we're suffering from a bit of imposter syndrome, our instinct is to physically shrink. We try to make ourselves a smaller target, and when we do that, we completely break that vital coherence.
To fix this, we have to pivot our understanding completely backwards. The old myth that society constantly feeds us is that confidence is something you have to feel inside first, and only after you feel it can you express it physically. Well, the new reality, which is thoroughly grounded in data, is that your body doesn't just passively reflect how you feel. It actively talks to your brain and dictates your state. The connection is a two-way street, and let me tell you, the physical lane is incredibly fast.
What's truly fascinating is the literal, measurable hormonal shift that happens when you change your posture. Taking on an expansive, open posture for just 2 minutes produces a stunning biological response. Your testosterone, the hormone heavily associated with dominance, risk tolerance, and assertiveness, visibly increases. Meanwhile, your cortisol, which is that primary stress hormone that causes anxiety, mental fog, and that panicked fight-or-flight response, drops. You aren't just giving yourself a quick pep talk, you're quite literally nudging your body into a completely different physiological state, and your mind is biologically forced to follow.
Section 4. The biological protocol.
Here is exactly how you're going to apply this science in the real world to build that unshakable container.
This protocol is entirely mechanical and practically foolproof. Step 1. Find 2 minutes of absolute privacy before your big meeting, your pitch, or your interview. Step 2. Aggressively adopt an expansive posture. Think of the victory V, arms up in a V shape, chin raised slightly, taking up as much space as humanly possible. Or go with the classic Wonder Woman stance, hands firmly on your hips, chest completely open. Now, okay, I know, it might feel a little ridiculous standing alone in a bathroom stall doing this, and you'll probably chuckle at yourself. But remember, the hormonal shift is absolutely real, regardless of whether or not you consciously believe in it. You are mechanically altering your brain chemistry.
Once you step out of privacy and into the room, your posture still matters immensely. When you finally sit down at the table, keep your elbows firmly planted on it. Take up your fair share of the physical real estate. Maintain a vertical spine that doesn't slump or fold or apologize for being there. If you suffer from imposter syndrome, this is your armor right here. This is the physical syntax of someone who unequivocally belongs in that space and casually commands respect.
But listen, a powerful physical syntax has to be matched by an equally powerful verbal syntax. You must align your language by stripping away all those verbal qualifiers. Phrases like, "I just wanted to quickly ask," or "this might be a stupid idea." These act as preemptive apologies for simply existing. They are linguistic white flags. They instantly sabotage the immense value of that powerful container you just spent time building. State your points cleanly, clearly, and firmly. Let your undeniable competence stand on its own without needing a defensive buffer. Finally, Section 5, fake it to become it. Let's address the hardest truth about this entire dynamic and why waiting around to simply feel ready is a guaranteed losing game.
We so often tell ourselves this comforting little lie that we'll finally step up and take charge once we naturally feel confident enough to do so. But actually, scratch that, the version of you waiting to naturally feel ready before acting ready is never, ever going to arrive. And that's because confidence is not a destination you reach before you start the journey. It is a byproduct that emerges directly from taking action. It's a result, not a prerequisite.
That's exactly why Amy Cuddy's famous phrase is so deeply powerful, yet honestly, so often tragically misunderstood. The actual quote was never the cliché "fake it till you make it." It is "fake it till you become it." When you utilize these expansive postures and step into the room powerfully, you aren't performing. You're not putting on some deceptive mask to trick people. You are quite literally training your nervous system to accept a new, far more powerful default. You just do it over and over until the biology catches up, rewires itself, and it simply becomes who you are.
So, I want to leave you with this pivotal question to really reflect on. I'd even encourage you to answer it out loud right now, wherever you are. What is the exact one thing you've been continually putting off while waiting to magically feel ready? Knowing that your brain is actively waiting for your physical body to lead the way, how are you going to step into the room differently tomorrow? The architecture of presence is completely in your hands. You just have to build the container.